DPK Pillai, who is the recipient of the Shaurya Chakra Award of India. That means he's a military war hero survivor while doing anti-terrorist operations in Manipur. He suffered 4 bullet shots and grenade attack, and saw first, before he was taken for evacuation, he saw first that the young children were taken so that their lives could be saved. And now Dr. Pillai, he's engaged in national security work, PMO office, the Prime Minister's office, and many other very distinguished services for his country to keep peace in the world. And most important, he takes his inspiration from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Dr. Pillai had studied other editions, including Dr. Radhakrishnan's and others. He couldn't find peace, and then he found Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and he reads Bhagavad Gita every day. So we're very honored to welcome Dr. Pillai with us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this great honor. For the invitation to come here. I don't know, it's Lord Krishna's will that I'm here, that I'm invited to be amongst all of you. It's, I met Mataji and I spoke to her, and I was just telling, thanks to Mrityunjay, who connected me, that I've been reading this Bhagavad Gita. I'm a soldier, and we go through a lot of dilemmas in our life, and I've tried a lot of other books and scriptures and others. We've never found that, but somehow I came across a small black-bound book of Krishna, taken out by ISKCON, and I kept it with me when I was in the army, and I would read it because, I'll tell you it as a story. Like my father was in the army, so my grandfather was in the army. It was almost obvious that I would also join the army. That's why I joined the army. But I didn't join the army knowing that I have to do killing and, to uphold the peace. I just went there because army was a great profession. You had lovely vehicles, good uniforms and everything. For me, like a young boy, we really didn't know what being in the army meant. It was just a uniform and a lot of... So when I went into an encounter for the first time in my life in Kashmir, where I was there, I actually froze when I was being fired at. I couldn't really get to open, even though I was very well trained, and I was I just couldn't open fire on somebody else, And when I came back to my battalion, and they said, "Why didn't you shoot?" I realized that exactly the moment what Arjuna felt in the battlefield, And I've been growing up reading this. I was a very naughty child, and we lived in Bangalore. I used to come back home early. My father put me in a military school. I had a stack of library books, Mahabharata, written by Rajagopalacharya, the edition, and then Bhagavad Gita, Radhakrishnan's version, and there was other things. I used to read it there till my sisters and brothers came back home. I used to hide because I was a naughty child. I used to be invariably being beaten up for doing something. So I enjoyed reading this book, and when I read those chapters where Arjuna, and you read about stories about Krishna being the charioteer for, I realized how blessed you all are to have chosen already this path. For us soldiers, it takes a long time to realize that God is our guide. God is taking us through our life. It's only now when I'm 58 years old, I look back and I realize that everything went as per a certain design that God had in mind. You all have chosen Krishna and the consciousness that is associated with it. You're already reached the state that we all need to reach, because it's like Arjuna going into Mahabharata when it was predestined that Duryodhana will take the army and he will choose Krishna, and Krishna would just be a charioteer. And when the battle ends and when he gets down from the chariot, when the flag Hanuman gets down, the chariot says burns. In other words, Krishna knew everything that is going to happen to him. And So when I look back at my life, I realize that, the God has already decided. And my coming here is again, I've been reading this Bhagavad Gita every day. It has been a great source of inspiration. And earlier I used to just open a particular thing and I read. And I used to feel, sometimes it comes to you as a inspiration to read that verse that has come out. And it gives you an answer. It's like what he was saying, that it's only when you open your eyes that God is communicating with you that you can understand the signals that He's giving. So, and the God communicates, like the war was already predestined. Duryodhan would take, the army was known, that army will get destroyed was known, and the chariot was going to be destroyed was already known to Krishna. But yet Arjuna went through that battle, they knew the outcome would have been certain. But we need to, that is something that is there. So for me, this experience of having gone through in the army, those options that are there. And now when I look back, I realize one thing, I learned to separate the sin from the sinner. When I came back to my battalion and when I was, mocked at for not having opened fire, because I was afraid to kill somebody. I was afraid to open fire. I was trained. It was a game for us to get a good grouping in our target. And we celebrated, oh, well done, Pillai's got a 3-inch grouping or 2-centimeter grouping. It was more of a sport. It was not a thing designed to kill somebody else. It was like a young boy's thrill. But when I had to actually open fire on a person to take his life, it was a moral dilemma for me. And that answer came from reading the Bhagavad Gita, understanding when he said, if you do not do your duty, it's a sin, and if you die in battle, you go to heaven. If you don't, you continue to enjoy the fruits here. So it's so important to understand certain, teachings that are there. So, and then you also read the story of when he is asked, Arjuna is asked, what do you see in the, the target? He says, I only see the eye, and he sees nothing else. For me, when I went into battle subsequently later, and I've always, and in life also, it's not just in war-like situations, it's also in day-to-day life. I see what is the problem that is I'm facing, what is the target that I have, it's the eye. So when I see a person, I don't see him as an individual, I see him like when the encounter took place and that man surrendered, I didn't see him as an enemy. I saw my cause as that upholding of my country's writ, my country's democracy and law and order in that state versus those people. The moment the battle was over, there was no enmity with him. There was no anger against him. And when I saw those children who didn't understand which region or religion, I just couldn't get myself to be protected. I felt my duty was to protect those children there, to protect those people there, to uphold. So I felt it was my karma and my duty to protect them. I was not there to be a reason. And that's what guided me to insist on the children's evacuation. And see how good karma comes to help you many years later. This act was over in 94, 25th of January. And then, I got wounded very badly. I was not promotable. I wanted to be a chief of the army and, had such ambitions. I realized but then, it's all in our illusion in our head. The Bhagavad Gita tells you. All this grandeur, all these positions and all are an illusion. That you think that I'm the chief, I'm the doer, these are all, I realize it today that how vain and how foolish it was. But when you look at the design that God had for me, I was to move into the National Security Council, to work in the Prime Minister. That's the ultimate honor that anyone could have. And then because I had not done certain box tickings in the army, like to command a battalion, to be in a brigade, because I couldn't be promoted, the army said he cannot go there to the National Security Council because we want somebody who's really competent. So then, out of the blue, this is how karma plays out. A patrol goes, after many years, it goes into that village, it finds a grave made in my name. It says, here, Captain Pillai died so that this village may live. And he forgave us all, and so that it went reported. And then they received it in the headquarters and they said, this DPK Pillai is the same guardsman. So then somebody rang up, he said, did you have an encounter in Tamenglong? I said, yes. So there's a grave there for you, why didn't you go and visit your grave? So then it became a national news when I went back there. And then, it came in India Today, NDTV, all that. It was just, it's available and all the thing. It says, army officer meets the former militants who killed him, shot him. Now, had I shown vengeance against those people that time, had I shown anger and my ego and my this thing come into it where I wouldn't have enjoyed this moment of honor and glory and blessing of God. When I learned that that battle was over, we need to forgive them. We need to identify the sin, not the sinner. And many years later, when I meet them, it became national news. Army officer meets man who shot him. And now, my file was stuck for moving into the National Security Council. And then the Defense Secretary says, if this Lieutenant Colonel Pillai is not qualified to join here, then who is, He says he's ultimate, I think, and that's how all that complaints that they had about me not having commanded a battalion in field or whatever was overruled. And I got the Prime Minister's approval, and I went into the Prime Minister's office for 8 years with the National Security Advisor. I worked in both the things, and it's a great honor. For a military man, it is the ultimate honor. For us, it's the thing to work where I worked on international cooperation. I collaborated, worked on many issues, that's my chosen path. I'm not here to make wealth or I look. Even when I go to the temple, I don't ask God to give me money or a promotion. I ask God to choose me to do what He wishes to be done so that I can do it well, And I've seen this option that have come to me many times over. I get picked up for very unusual jobs that I have, whether it is, I can't. But there are many times that I've realized that it's a blessing of God that comes to you some way. And if you have faith in Him, He shows that faith back to you. I think that is, and then He chooses you for such deeds that can make your life much more meaningful. Because we're going to leave all this and all these illusions of power that we have. I may have been a general with 3 stars on my car and with an escort in the front and escort and helicopters hovering around me, but that will be given up. It's not forever. But today, the joy that I get when I look back, and I, sometimes I'm down, I just have to look at that man who would have shot me. When I hug him, I realize that it feels so good. It's available on the internet. It's available. And when I look at the school work I've done, when I went to meet Mr. Gadkari, I asked him for a road for the village. He gave a national highway. I don't need to have that money, but I spoke to Dr. Devi Shetty that, girls from Manipur are exploited, I feel bad the way humans exploit other humans because they are nice, well-behaved people. They treat them, and you see in Delhi and others, they're treated in. So I've got him. Now they train them as nurses, and many of them have got trained, and a few of them have moved abroad in their hospitals in Narayana Hridayalaya. Narayana Hridayalaya is run by Dr. Devi Shetty, who is the man who actually brought down the cost of heart surgeries by 1/10. It is a money-making industry, and he works it he wants to deliver healthcare to everyone. And I really... So it is I realized that when I went to meet the Home Secretary, then DPK Pillai, I told him there's something. He said he sanctioned. So if you think that it is me who's doing it, it's not. It is God who's doing it. It's the dots that you got to connect. And the faster we realize that we are all but His instruments of His will, and it is there in every day you can learn one, wise thing from here. And if you know it that you're doing it in His consciousness, I think life becomes much more meaningful and much more. So, and I'm really amazed by you, Mataji, and of course all of you. I just came back from America. It's a beautiful country, and for many, I'm from Kerala and South India, for us it's heaven to go to America, right? To see people come from there and give up their citizenship and be an Indian. She tells me on Monday she's going to be an Indian citizen. I feel really overawed and humbled by, the sacrifice that you're doing. And you already realize that, Krishna is in your life and you're protected. It's not like Arjuna who goes into battle uncertain about what will happen, not knowing at the end of 18 days will they be there. You already have realized Him, and you recognize the fact that you've accepted it, and you know the outcomes. Whatever you're doing it as a service to humanity, as what we are. So it's a great honor to be in your company, to be invited here, and to understand all that great thing that you're doing. I think yesterday I was mentioning to Mataji and this thing that when I was coming in the train, a young boy got me a book, somebody from the thing. It's a story of Ajamila about a man who went into bad ways, and how just by calling God's name, he was forgiven for that. It's even in the last moment, if you take that realization is so important, that doing anything, all that you do, recognizing that it is in his service alone, that is very, very important for all of us. And thank you for this honor, for inviting me. Really feel very touched and humbled. It's a great experience to be here. And I also, when I go abroad, I carry the Bhagavad Gita with me. And in Delhi, you have these young boys, nice, very pleasing boys who would never. They tell you, give what you want, They give you pen drives, which probably is worth 2,000 rupees. You just take it for 500. And then when you hear the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita and all this is there in this pen drive and these books. So I was going once I wanted to take something. I was going for a meeting, and it's always good when you go for international meetings and others. You carry some gifts from India, but I never had, because I was just told 2 days before that you got to go. And I was just thinking in my head, I've not bought any gifts for anyone. This is in 2006 when I was in MOD and I was going to Geneva. Then I found this man. I said, give me $5. I had 50 kg allowance also for my luggage, so there was no problem. So I just took 10. He said, how many for all this? And I went there and I gave it. And I'm telling you, they appreciated it so much when I gave it. When I gave those books to those people there, and I told them this is the world's oldest scripture, the oldest wisdom anyone, and I said, well, any great philosopher, you take it, and whether it is Oppenheimer, you must have seen that movie. Oppenheimer came and he quoted. What did he quote? He quoted from the Gita that I am become the death, the destroyer of the worlds. Or whether it is any great this thing you find, it's for some reason our world is going, hammer and tongs to destroy this culture. That's where I feel people like you who have sacrificed so much to keep this alive. Because for us, our generation, I never went to a Sanskrit school. Even though my parents learned in Sanskrit, they learned the local. They thought that putting me in an English school was the best thing that they could do to secure my future, and which they did in the sense. But today, at my age, I feel miserable that I have not learned my own cultural thing. And what you're doing and keeping it alive, and all the books that are available in the bookshop here, I think I am really inspired by this kind of a service that you do, because it's so important. Because I worked in the International Red Cross. I was in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. And if Islam were the way of life, or if Christianity were the way of life, then we won't have fights between Iraq and Iran, or ISIS killing the Shias and Iran killing them, or Ukrainian and Russians are also the same religion. They don't. World War II happened in Europe. There won't be wars. I went last month to America to speak on irregular warfare, and I got to speak to them. Everyone else who's come from other countries like Australia, France, and others, they're praising the American style. So I just told them, I said, there's a few lessons that Indians can teach you. I said, I want to tell you a story. And that's the time that the Ram temple had just been inaugurated. And I said, in India, there's a Ram temple that has come up out of 500 years. And Ram was a young prince who was banished from his kingdom. He goes, weaponless, wife stolen by somebody else. He goes to a country across the seas. He makes a bridge, goes and retrieves. He says he raises an army, just by the sheer character of his cause and sheer faith in him, that he raises an entire army which invades a very powerful king, disposes of that king, installs his younger brother as the king, and establishes an order and comes back here. And Lanka flourishes. And I said, we've come back to 1971. We had a similar case where we had anarchy and chaos in our neighborhood. We had a genocide being committed, 5 million Bangladeshis being killed by Pakistanis, and Henry Kissinger and Nixon sends the 7th fleet into the Bay of Bengal to threaten India from going to war. But India goes and liberates, installs in their place of the West Pakistani administration, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and creates a very stable. Today, Bangladesh is a very stable country. It's far better than Pakistan in many indices in human development. It's in an order, And I said, India has flourished. Two countries became independent in 1947. One country is going into chaos. It doesn't even know where they're going to pay the next month's salary. But India is today former masters of our country. The Britain, we've outbeaten them in economy and everything. And I think that all comes from our ancient cultural wisdom, which exists in all of us in some measure, which is very important to be preserved, which is, all this wisdom that comes to us, whether we are Malayali or Tamil or Brahmin or, any race. It comes from all these stories that we hear from our childhood. Like Arjuna inspired me, and it inspired me to do actions in a way a man who upholds the dharma should. And I have reaped the benefits of that. It comes from those stories. Had I read stories of brutality, of justifying killing people because they are not believers, because they didn't adhere to something, if I were brought up in that belief that I could cut him, it is lawful to kill somebody else because he didn't believe you, I think I wouldn't have enjoyed this life that I am. Today I enjoy a very respectable position. People respect my thoughts. And I think that comes from this wisdom that is existing in this. And I'm really, blessed that I wouldn't have. I've been reading this book. I've sent it to Mrityunjay. I read this every day. And anyone who comes to my room, I make them also read a chapter. First I offer all of them tea and coffee. I have a very good flourishing, which you said you shouldn't drink, but I have a flourishing coffee machine. I'm the man who gives good coffee in my institute. Mine is a think tank, and we're basically supposed to exchange ideas and generate ideas for the government to think what it can do. Because people in the government are very busy. They really don't have time to think, and in the sense. So they like people like us to prepare policy briefs on what should be done, what shouldn't be done, what is the outcome. So that's something that we do, and it can come. I can't just sit in one room, and I need to talk to people. So I serve coffee to everyone, but I also make them, read, and I insist. So I have a Muslim friend who's again a colleague. So I discuss this with him. So we have a nice little debate on, understanding. Because there's no contest here. I don't think we are in contest to prove which religion is better or which is bad. To get the best out of everyone. So when I was in Iraq, I missed my temples. I don't go to a temple because I have to give an attendance or whatever. I go every day to a temple. And I love temples. I love, just... So if people tell me, how do you know that there is God there and whatever, So I said, how does your body know to draw oxygen? How does it know that you have... I said, my body picks it up, tunes it up. It's like, how does your radio receive it? I said, I tune it and I receive it. And I see the signs. I see all the signs all the time. Whenever I go there, I get a vision, what is to be done. I get inspired. It's like, it's something that is transmitted to you. And if your mind is tuned to receive it, you can receive the messages that are being sent to you. And I think that is what, this great... So finally, I think I will stop here. I've spoken for half an hour. I'll ask you all if there's anything I can do. And I thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for this great honor. You're all blessed in the sense you've already recognized. It took me a long time to realize that God has a plan for us. And we struggle so hard to prove something to someone, to dress in a particular way, to impress someone, to do something, and I just now it strikes me that what has to come to you will come to you any which way, and what is yours will come to you. What is not supposed to come to you was never meant to, And I think the more you realize and renounce yourself and then dedicate your life in the service of God, I think that's the greatest form of happiness that you can actually have. And I salute you all for having recognized at such a young age. You don't have to reach my age to, and be part of this. And thank you very much for this. Thank you. Jai Hare Krishna.
Gita. So when we're on Sankirtan, and sometimes there's difficulty with the mind or difficulty with doing your service, we would open the book and read, and the message was always very appropriate. Always to put you back on track to move, get off the mental platform. So as you said, that was something in common. That practically every day, when you're out doing your service, when the troubles come, take shelter of the book. It's very rare to find someone, of your background and firm belief. That's why Prabhupada made the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, so that we can all inspire one another by the pursuit of self-realization, because but you on your own practically are maintaining the enthusiasm for Gita and all what it represents, so that I also appreciate that on your side.
I also saw there's a movie called Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know whether you've seen it. Will Smith. Will Smith is a great actor, and he's a great Krishna. I don't know whether you've seen it. It's an amazing interview where he is there internet on this? It's something worth seeing, because he talks about how he's inspired by Krishna. The man who could destroy everything. He suffers humiliation. He goes through in his life, even though he's God, he couldn't destroy people by one, but he goes through all the trials and tribulations, and experience what it is. And he says, then I realized that I'm just ordinary Will Smith. And it's an interview worth watching. It's with Jay Shetty. It's an amazing interview who talks about, and then of course this is like in the morning today, I went to the bookshop and Mataji just gave me that card, and you pick a card and it tells you a verse. I think it is so appropriate. Today I really needed to understand, when you go through events like this, and I was never even planning to come here, but today I'm here, I'm reading all this, and I took this Gitas and gave it in Geneva, when I didn't carry the gifts, I bought them. And I took it and gifted it to people. And this is the ISKCON. Even yesterday, it was like Mrityunjay was with me. He comes and gives me the story of Ajamila, which I bought, And I said, I already have the Gita. I have already all the versions. So then he says, take this book. And it's such an appropriate story that the man renounces all his good that he's done by going the wrong way. There's so much of, you have to do what is, it's an amazing, and the fact that you can translate it all, then the bookshop that you have, it's an amazing collection of books, that the dot coloring and all those things. It's something which is really, I wish more people did it, with the passion that you all do. More people, try, because if I know one thing for sure, if India loses its past, this Vedic past, it'll be like Iraq or Syria or Pakistan. We have an example. We have Pakistan and India became independent in 1947 on the same day. You've seen where they are today and where we are. And if anything that can distinguish them from us, it is their religion. And if this religion and this faith and this culture is gone, it's not going to be that India anymore. And it's where, people like your ISKCON and Prabhupada realize the importance. Actually showing the path to a lot of people abroad. Your devotees are all international, and it makes it, because you come with the Western come with a kind of an programming that they're taught very early in their life, that there's certain. But when you choose this, it's a deliberate choice that you're making, a very considered decision. And here conversions don't happen because they have realized it. It comes because they offer some inducements to them. Whereas when you choose the path of Krishna, it's coming from an enlightened state of mind where you choose it deliberately, because you're all educated, you're well aware, you lived through a life of luxury and everything, and it's so important what you're doing, which is, I think it's really, I'm blessed to be here today, and I want to thank you all.
I want to thank you very much, because what you're saying is inspiring us to continue with our present lifestyle, knowing that it's being appreciated by leaders such as yourself. And not only what we're doing now, you're also doing yourself by distributing Bhagavad Gita to so many people. And these are people that we would never be able to approach on our own. So we thank you so much for the service you're doing directly to Sri Krishna. He's inspiring you from within. And we hope you can go to higher and higher heights. Make everyone Krishna conscious in the whole world.
I'm blessed that I have this opportunity. I'm just an instrument of His will, like I tell everyone. Like I want to explain to you one thing. Like when I was wounded, I suffered very badly. I was nearly dying. and a lot of blood was given to me. And there were doctors who really worked very hard in sewing me up and making me what I am. So when I got better, I wrote a letter to the doctor. I said, can I please know whose blood was given to me? And I want to thank you. And is there anything I can do to, pay you back? So the doctor wrote back to me. He says, thank you, Pillai. It is a privilege for me to have treated. We are meant, I get my salary for treating patients like you. You really don't have to be thankful to me. And I want you to be assured that I gave you human blood. So please don't ask me whose blood it was. And third, if you really want to pay me back, if you feel that I've done you an extraordinary favor, whatever, all that you need to do is when someone comes to you with all hope is lost, make sure you are that person who gives him that hope, and do something good for him rather than, pushing. And I think that's a great philosophy which I have adopted in my life. And everything that I do today, I realize it is God's will. When someone thanks me for something, I realize that I tell them it's not me. You thank God for, He wanted you to get it. If somebody gets an admission or somebody gets something, it's not me. It's just that it happens that I meet the right person. I am able to do it. So if you dedicate it, and I think it is God's will. I think it's the reward of having read this Gita that I've come here today for all these days to share. I have my morning arati, to hear the conch shells blow. I, like a military man, I feel very proud when I hear the conch shell blow. Like the Panchajanya being blown in the battlefield. I love it when I hear the conch and the cymbals and all that. It is a very powerful thing. So in the morning at 4 o'clock when everyone else is sleeping, when the muhurta is so nice, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, and I enjoy my morning time in the sun, before the sun rises. I try to do that to my children, they shout at me. But, my father used to say, don't get up till the sun comes streaming on your buttocks, Get up in the morning and do something, Because if you lose that 2 hours, that Brahma Muhurta in the morning, you're chasing the rest of the day, finding those 2 hours that you lost. What I get to do, this Aarti is so divine. I don't think any other religion has this kind of a practice where you get up in the morning and do this. Wake up the God, there's so much of symbolism where there is it's an amazing, I enjoyed the morning Aarti and the multitude of people who were there. I came here as a young child in 81, my father and mother. My uncle was the general officer commanding of the corps here, Mathura, the corps headquarters. He was a war hero, was the 71 war, Mahavir Chakra in Bangladesh. He liberated a town called Darsana. He was the corps commander here. So when we came here, I remember he had pilot jeeps in the front, CMP, and they all came here. And now that you told me that you were here, it was a very small place that time. But I remember coming here, and there was also 2 boys who would predict the future somewhere close by. There were some, so they took me. So, it was an amazing, but now when I come here, it's such a beautiful place. And now that new center that is coming up, it's really going to look so beautiful. It'll be amazing. Some of the best temples, anyway, and the best food also, we enjoyed that in the morning, comes from the...
I got to make a confession. Mother Devi Shakti told me he's a decorated war hero, and he had his leg blown up. So during Mangalarti, I kept looking at your legs. I wanted to see which leg got blown up. You got 2 legs. So what happened? What happened? You said you get your leg blown up. You still got both legs. What's happening?
It's reconstructed. The same doctor. When I landed there, the Olympics had just got over. So I had 4 bullets through my chest, and the leg was opened up completely. This was opened because a grenade had blown up on the leg. I entered the room where they were hiding. I had kicked the door open. So they'd opened, the moment I entered, they opened a burst of fire. It hit me on my chest. 3 bursts got me here, and the 4th one on my chest. And then I was still standing there. I still had not opened my trigger because I just can't get to kill somebody straight away. It requires a lot of, I can't just enter with my guns blazing, and I don't know who's there, whether you could do. And I was still, waiting for getting provoked. I think I'm very slow to get provoked into battle. And I still didn't realize that I should open fire back. Then he threw a grenade at me, and the grenade blew on my leg. But at that precise moment, the door which had kicked open hit the wall and came and covered my entire body. It fell on me. It covered my body completely. So I just got the blast was on my ankle and this thing. And I got a few splinters on this portion of my hand. But my face, my body and everything was, because the splinters would have come and hit me in my multiple places, into my heart and others. And it is the butterfly effect. It just flies out, from the thing. It goes and it would have taken me completely, but that door protected me. There must be a reason. And I was saved. And
he wanted you to be here today.
it's a blessing. There must be a reason.
I think Mother Devi Shakti gave you blessings.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm.
This is her fan too, right?
Yeah.
This is your guru.
A lot of people told me, I should go to America. They offered me this. I worked with the Red Cross, and so I could stay on in Geneva and other places. But I somehow I couldn't get myself to live in an alien land. I miss my country. I love my country for whatever it is. I love the smell. It's very noisy, dirty,
Very
smelly. Mustard oil in North India, coconut oil in the South India. But then it's somehow very colorful, very beautiful, and there's something very appealing about that. Like a life in Geneva or Singapore would be so clean, sterilized. It's like living in a hospital. You could drink the water from there. You go to America. It's a beautiful country, broad roads. I know the value a country life abroad. I know what you have sacrificed to dedicate. And on Monday, when you said that I'm getting a citizenship of this country, it makes me feel so touched that somebody, who's renounced all this and willingly given up a good life. It's to choose this kind of a thing. It shows that there's so much of wisdom in this to the enlightened people to see it. It's a lot of, and I think that's a great, it's not either people might say it's a sacrifice, but actually I see it as enlightenment, to know what it's taken me so many years to realize, that you realize at such an early age. 50 years ago you say, 30 years ago you realized it. That wisdom that you had to understand that, and now when I see the people who are wealthy, powerful, I'm saying when I was a young boy, I was in Bangalore. Mountbatten got killed by the IRA guys. Mountbatten was a revered figure in our country. He was the one who partitioned, Viceroy. And then we had Prince Charles and Lady Diana marrying, Diana Spencer. For us, it came in our televisions, and for us, it was like a fairy tale wedding. We thought, oh my God, a queen, princess. It was an ultimate thing. And we all said, oh, why am I not living like Prince Charles, and why am I not getting a Princess Diana? But then when you come down the line and you hear the story today, and if you see a series like Crown, and then you realize what a miserable life the queen is leading, and how miserable Diana was as the wife of the queen of England, the princess. And then I realized that, what we see and what is glittering is not what it is matters, At that time, we wanted to be like Prince Charles. We wanted to be known, powerful. Mountbatten, the Viceroy, getting blown off, Prime Minister's son getting killed in an air crash, Indira Gandhi, losing her life, and however mighty and powerful, that quest is, there's no limit to your quest. But if you can.
Kennedy shot at his youth.
That's an amazing, but then, that joy that you have to realize that I don't need these things. I don't want to be a princess. I don't want to be a queen. I don't want to be a president. I want to be happy in what I have here. I want to be happy in doing, this consciousness. I think that's a great, blessing. I think that is something which is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.